Okay, in this video we're going to talk about how to divide integers using an algorithm or a rule. So make sure you remember, you know what that means. Algorithm is a rule. Talked to you about that in the previous video on multiplying integers. So we're going to use that multiplication video in order to help us divide. Okay, remember division is the opposite of multiplication. So for example, if you multiply 2 times 3 and we get 6, then that means that 6 divided by 2 equals 3. And also 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2. So it's kind of like backwards, working backwards. So let's see if we can write down the two division sentences using the following multiplication problem. Okay, so if 2 times negative 3 equals to negative 6, then that means that negative 6 divided by 2 is equal to negative 3. Okay, or negative 6 divided by negative 3 is equal to positive 2. Okay, here's the next sentence. If we have negative 2 times negative 3 equals positive 6, then that means that positive 6 divided by the first integer, which is negative 2, is going to give me the second integer, which is negative 3. Or we can switch things around. We can say that that's 6 divided by this negative 3 is equal to this negative 2. Okay, so in the negative sign, the negative numbers, I like to put in parentheses so that you know that they're negatives. They're not, it's not minus, but negatives, and that's my division symbol. Okay, so we'll put this one in parentheses. That's a negative, that's a negative, that's a negative, and that's a negative. Okay, now the question says, what patterns do you see when you divide integers? It's kind of like the same thing we did for multiplication. The patterns that we see here are really simple. Whenever you have a positive number and you divide another positive number, your answer is going to be positive. If you have a negative number and you divide by a negative number, then your answer is going to be, let's go back and look at that one. Notice here what we have. We have a, negative number divided by a negative number. What kind of number do we end up here with? A positive number. Okay, so that's where I'm getting to. Negative divided by a negative equals a positive. Now if we have one negative only and we're dividing by a positive, then my answer is going to be negative. And if we have a positive number divided by a negative, then my answer is also going to be negative. Okay, remember the other video that we did on multiplication of integers? We talked about these rules, and we talked about how if you have an even number of negatives, then the answer will be positive, sorry. And if we have an odd number of negatives, then my answer would be negative. In this case, look at what we have. We have an even number. We have two negatives, so my answer is positive because we have two negatives. That's that number 2, that's an even number. Okay, if you look at the other ones, we have an odd number. We only have this one. That's 1. 1 is an odd number, so our answer is negative. Here on this problem, we only have one negative. Again, that's 1. So my answer is going to be also negative. But if it's an even number, it's always going to be positive. If it's an odd number of negative signs in your problem, then it's going to be a negative. Okay, we're going to work out some examples right now so you can understand that a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to say find the quotient using the algorithm or the rule above. The one that we just wrote down, right? So here we go. 45 divided by 9. This is a positive and is dividing a positive. So positive divided by a positive, my answer has to be a positive answer. So 45 divided by 9, well, I know that 9 times 6 is 54, that's too much. But 9 times 5 is 45. So that's my answer, 5. Okay, now this one, I have 3 is dividing negative 27. Well, I'm not going to worry about this negative yet. What I do want to see though, I want to see you dividing this 27. 3 cannot go into 2, but 3 goes into 27 9 times. That's 27, remainder 0. So my answer is 9. Now remember, we only have one negative, whoops. We only have one negative number, this one right here is negative 27. So because we have only one number, 1 is an odd number, so my answer is going to be a negative. Okay, on this one we have a negative dividing a negative. We have two negatives. That number 2, it's an even number. So my answer we know is going to be a positive already. Okay, negative 81 divided by negative 9. Hopefully you got this one right. Just 81 divided by 9 is 9. And it's positive because we'll have two negatives. Two negatives being divided or being multiplied will always give you a positive answer. The last one down here, 64 divided by negative 8. Well, I know 64 divided by 8 is 8 because 8 times 8 is 64. But we have one negative, and because 1 is an odd number, then my answer is going to be negative as well. So my answer is negative 8. And it really is that easy. Now let's look at the applications. A scuba diver is 90 feet below sea level, and then he rises to the surface at a rate of 30 feet per minute. How long will the diver take to reach the surface of the water? Okay, so let's draw a picture so we can understand this right here. Here's the surface of the water. The diver is way down here, right? Here's my diver in the bottom of the sea. And that is 90 feet from the surface of the water to where he's at. That's 90 feet. Now that's to the surface of the water. He is going to go higher. He is going to rise 30 feet every minute. So when 1 minute races, when 1 minute passes, he's going to be 30 feet higher. Here's another minute. He's going to be 30 feet higher. And he's going to do that all the way until he reaches the surface. We don't know how many times that 30 feet is going to be. Actually, we kind of do if you think about it. But the question here is to divide, right? This is division note. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dividing those 90 feet into equal sections of 30 feet. Okay, so how long will the diver take? Well, however many sections we get, that's how many minutes it's going to be. So we're going to divide 90 by 30, right? So 90 divided by 30. Well, no, 90 divided by 30 is going to be 3, because 3 times 30 is 90. Okay, so really I didn't need this arrow right here. This arrow should go all the way up to the top. Let me erase that right quick. Because the last arrow should go all the way up to the top. Because 30 plus 30 is 60, plus 30 more is going to give me 90 that I need. So that gives me the 90. So that's really all it is. Now here it says below the sea level, right? That's negative 90. This number is a negative 90 because it's below the sea level. Okay, now it takes 30 feet per minute. So he's going to be rising 30 feet per minute. Okay, so that's going to be a positive 30. So that means that my answer is going to be negative. Now this says negative 3 minutes. Does that make sense? Doesn't really make sense. So because minutes, time, cannot be negative, then we drop off that negative symbol. And my answer is just 3 minutes. Okay. Again, when you have an application problem, you have to think about what the question is asking you, and does your answer make sense? If it doesn't make sense to have a negative 3 for the number of minutes, then get rid of that negative sign, because we're really just talking about how many minutes, how long does it take for that diver to reach the surface of the water again. So it's going to be 3 minutes past. So time cannot be negative, just like distance cannot be negative. Okay, so hopefully you remember those two things, because I will ask you that tomorrow in class. So make sure you understand that. All right, thank you for watching.